The smell was what I noticed first. Not decay, nothing so obvious, just wrong. Like old pennies and wet soil, saturating the air of Sheriff Lowell's empty office. I pressed my voice recorder closer to Deputy Warren, who kept fidgeting with his collar. "And you're saying he called in sick 3 weeks ago and nobody's heard from him since?" I asked. "That's what I'm telling you, Miss Chin. The sheriff's a private man. Lives alone since his wife passed. Sometimes he goes fishing up in the mountains when he needs space. Nothing unusual." But I'd been a crime reporter for 12 years. When the editor at the Cedar County Chronicle assigned me this story, I almost refused. Small-town sheriff takes unexpected leave, hardly front-page material. Except 3 girls had gone missing in the past year, and despite the state police investigation turning up nothing, something felt unfinished. Deputy Warren's eyes darted toward the corner of the room. "We're managing fine. Sheriff will be back soon enough." I noticed a photo frame on the desk, face down. When Warren stepped out to take a call, I flipped it upright. Sheriff Lowell and a teenage girl with his same deep-set eyes. His daughter, presumably. I'd never heard mention of her in town. "Please don't touch anything." Warren stood in the doorway, shoulders tense. "Sorry," I said, setting the frame down. "I didn't realize Sheriff Lowell had a daughter." Something flickered across Warren's face. "Rebecca. She moved away years ago. College." I nodded, but made a mental note. Rebecca Lowell. Worth looking into. The sheriff's house sat at the end of a gravel road, 3 miles from town. A simple one-story ranch with peeling blue paint. No car in the driveway. The mailbox overflowed. I knocked anyway. When no one answered, I walked the perimeter. Standard journalist procedure. Look for anything unusual. The backyard was overgrown except for a rectangle of freshly turned soil near the edge of the property. A failed garden perhaps, though the dimensions struck me as odd, roughly 6 feet by 3. Through the kitchen window, I could see dishes in the sink, an open box of cereal on the counter. Not the home of someone planning an extended absence. I was about to leave when my phone buzzed. An email from an anonymous address. Subject line: Sheriff Lowell isn't sick. The body contained only a video file. I downloaded it, heart pounding. The footage was grainy, night vision green. Sheriff Lowell's face filled the frame, eyes wide, panicked. He was inside what looked like a small room, concrete walls. His voice trembled. "If you're watching this, I'm probably dead. It wasn't what everyone thinks. I found something, connections between the missing girls. Evidence that doesn't make sense." He looked over his shoulder. "Someone's been following me for weeks. I think it's..." The video cut off. I forwarded it to my editor, hands shaking, then drove straight to the police station. "I need to file a missing persons report," I told the desk sergeant. "For Sheriff Lowell." Deputy Warren emerged from a back office. "Ms. Chin." Again. I showed him the video. His face remained impassive, but a muscle in his jaw twitched. "Where did you get this?" "Anonymous source." "Have you seen it before?" "No." "Too quick." "Look, this is clearly a prank. Sheriff called me 2 days ago. He's fine, just needs some time away. Then you won't mind if I give this to the state police?" Warren's hand twitched toward his holster, a reflexive movement, barely perceptible. "Do what you need to. But you're creating a problem where there isn't one." That night, my motel room door rattled. A slip of paper had been pushed underneath. Asterisk Rebecca Lowell. St. Mary's Cemetery. 2018. Asterisk. The groundskeeper confirmed it. Rebecca Lowell died 4 years ago. Cancer, according to the death certificate I found online. 22 years old. But when I checked enrollment records, Rebecca hadn't attended any college. I drove back to the sheriff's house after dark. Trespassing, but necessary. The back door's lock was simple enough to pick, a skill from my misspent youth. Inside, the air was stale. In the living room, 3 gaps on the bookshelf. Missing books? In the kitchen, a drawer slightly open. I pulled it further, empty, save for a single key. The basement door was locked. The key fit. Downstairs, I found a makeshift investigation room. Photos of the 3 missing girls pinned to a corkboard. Red string connecting them to maps, documents. In the center, a photograph of Deputy Warren, circled in thick marker. A journal sat open on a desk. Sheriff Lowell's handwriting, becoming increasingly erratic with each entry. March 12th, spotted Warren's truck again near Miller's Ravine. 3rd time this month. March 20th, found hair in the trunk of his cruiser. Same color as Lily Evans. April 5th, he knows I'm watching him. Started leaving signs to taunt me. April 15th, recording everything now. If something happens to me, the evidence is in the old hunting cabin. My heart hammered. I snapped photos of everything, then crept back upstairs. A floorboard creaked in the kitchen. I froze. Not alone. I barely made it out through a bathroom window. Someone had been inside, waiting. I saw headlights in my rearview mirror all the way back to the motel. The next morning, my editor called. Protocol says I forward potential evidence to the police, Eliza. Not local. State police only. Too late. I sent it to both yesterday evening. My stomach dropped. I need to go. I hung up and threw my belongings into my bag. Someone knocked on my door. Ms. Chun? Deputy Warren. We need to talk about the evidence you've been gathering. I slipped out the bathroom window again, heart pounding so hard I felt nauseated. My car was blocked by a police cruiser. I ran toward the main road instead, ducking behind the motel office. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Ms. Chin. A tired voice I didn't recognize. My name is Rebecca Lowell. The world tilted sideways. You're not dead. At least not yet. My father helped me disappear 4 years ago. We faked my death. Why? Because I saw something I shouldn't have. At Miller's Ravine. Warren and 3 other men. A girl who couldn't have been more than 16. Her voice cracked. Dad started investigating quietly, connecting disappearances across 3 counties. When they realized he knew, they came for him. The video. Dad has a cabin. That's where he was hiding. But they found him 2 days ago. How do you know all this? Because Warren sent me pictures. Her voice broke. You need to run. They know you have evidence. I hiked 2 miles through dense forest to reach Sheriff Lowell's hunting cabin. The door hung open, splintered around the lock. Inside, blood spattered the walls. A struggle. No body. A laptop sat open on a table, the screen cracked but still functioning. Dozens of video files, meticulously labeled with dates. I copied everything onto my flash drive. Headlights swept across the cabin windows. Voices outside. I recognized Warren's. Check the back. She's here somewhere. I slipped out through a rear window and ran blindly through the trees. 3 days later, I sat in a state police detective's office, my evidence spread across his desk. This is disturbing, Detective Ramos said, reviewing the files. But without Sheriff Lowell's testimony or body, it's all circumstantial. What about the videos? The girls? We're investigating. Warren and 2 other deputies are being questioned. He paused. But Ms. Chen, much of this evidence appears to have been gathered illegally. So was their trophy collection. I pushed forward a still image from one of the sheriff's videos. Deputy Warren and 2 other men I didn't recognize drinking beer around a table covered with driver's licenses, jewelry, and locks of hair. Detective Ramos nodded slowly. We'll need you to stay in town. That night, my hotel phone rang at 3:17 a.m. It's Rebecca. They released Warren an hour ago. Insufficient evidence. That's impossible. My father once told me that this went higher than he ever expected. Judges. State officials. People who could make evidence disappear. I heard a noise outside my door. Footsteps. Rebecca, I think. They're coming for you now. Like they came for him. I grabbed my laptop and phone, then slipped into the bathroom, locking the door. No window this time. Trapped. What happened to your father? Rebecca's voice was barely audible. The same thing that's about to happen to you. Something heavy slammed against my hotel room door. I opened the bathroom window and looked down. 3 stories up. No fire escape. My phone beeped. A text message from an unknown number. A video attachment. Sheriff Lowell, bloody and bruised, tied to a chair in a dark room. Warren circling him slowly. Tell me where she is, Warren demanded. The sheriff spat blood. You'll never find her. And she has everything. All the evidence. Warren smiled. We already found the journalist. But Rebecca, we'll find her too. I heard my hotel room door splinter open. Heavy footsteps. The bathroom doorknob turned. I hit send on the email containing all the evidence. To my editor, to the FBI, to every news outlet in my contacts. Then I dropped my phone into the toilet. The bathroom door burst open. Deputy Warren stood there, another man behind him. Both wearing gloves. Ms. Chen, Warren said pleasantly. We need to have a conversation about your investigation. I backed away until I hit the window ledge. People know I'm here. They'll look for me. Like they looked for those girls? Like they're looking for Sheriff Lowell? Warren smiled. Nobody really searches for long. People disappear all the time. Where is he? Close by. You'll see him soon. The other man stepped forward with something that glinted in the dim light. And I realized with perfect clarity that I was about to become another missing person. Another case that would eventually go cold. Another name whispered by locals years from now. Unless I could change the narrative. I lunged forward suddenly, catching them by surprise. Not running away, but toward them. Toward the only exit. Warren grabbed my arm. Pain exploded in my side, a sharp, burning sensation. But I had one advantage they didn't know about, the sheriff's voice recorder, still running in my pocket. Capturing everything. Why the girls? I gasped, blood warm against my skin. Why any of this? Warren leaned close. Because we can. Because no one stops us. I saw the second man raise his arm again, something metallic catching the light. And that's where my memory ends. When the FBI found this recording device 3 weeks later, it was buried in freshly turned soil behind Sheriff Lowell's house. Next to 2 bodies. One was the sheriff. The other remains unidentified. Deputy Warren and 4 other men were arrested. 2 judges. A state representative. Charges are pending. But Rebecca Lowell was never found. And sometimes I think I can still feel the cold air from that bathroom window. Still hear Warren's voice. Still feel that burning in my side. Wait. That doesn't make sense, does it? If I died that night in the hotel bathroom, who's telling this story? Who recorded these final words? Look behind you. I've been watching for some time now. I never should have taken that delivery to 1478 Rosemont Drive. It was my 3rd week at Gino's Pizzeria. Tuesday nights were slow, which is why I was the only driver on shift. The order came in at 10:42 p.m., just 18 minutes before close. 1 large pepperoni, extra cheese. Nothing unusual except the address. Hey, Marco, I called to my manager. Is Rosemont Drive in our delivery zone? Marco squinted at the ticket. Edge of it. Barely. Rich people. Probably good tip. The GPS took me down winding roads I'd never seen despite living in Westbrook my entire life. Massive houses set back from the street, security gates everywhere. 1478 was at the very end, a sprawling colonial with a circular driveway. Most windows dark except for a dim light somewhere deep inside. I rang the doorbell, bouncing on my heels against the October chill. No answer. I rang again. Still nothing. I was about to call when the door opened just enough for me to see a sliver of a face. A woman, mid-40s, blonde hair pulled back tight. Delivery from Gino's. I said, holding up the warming bag. Come inside, she whispered. Please. Quickly. Every delivery driver knows the rules. Never enter a customer's home. But something in her voice, urgent, frightened, made me hesitate just long enough for her to pull the door wider. Please, she repeated. My husband monitors the front porch camera. He can't see the delivery. Against my better judgment, I stepped inside. The foyer was marble and mahogany, expensive in that old money way. The woman wore silk pajamas under a cashmere robe, not exactly the outfit of someone being held captive. Maybe just rich people weirdness. That'll be $22.95, I said. She pressed the 50 into my hand. Follow me to the kitchen. Quickly. We moved through the darkened house. I noticed security keypads on every door, small red lights blinking. In the kitchen, she finally turned to face me. Do you have a phone? She asked. Yeah. Is it on? Is it recording? I took an instinctive step back. Look, I just need to deliver this pizza and... I'm sorry, she said, running a hand through her hair. You must think I'm crazy. It's just that my husband doesn't know I ordered. He's very particular about what I eat. Something about her explanation made my skin crawl. She was thin, too thin, with prominent collarbones and wrists so delicate they looked like they might snap. Her eyes kept darting to the doorway. I can just leave the pizza and go, I offered. No, she said too quickly. Then softer. No. Please stay. Just for a minute. She took the pizza box and opened it with reverence. Her hands trembled slightly. I haven't had pizza in 7 years, she said, her voice barely audible. Before I could respond, a mechanical beep echoed from somewhere in the house. Her face went white. You need to go, she whispered urgently. Now. Through the back door. What? Please. She grabbed my arm, fingers digging in with surprising strength. If he sees you here. The beeping continued. Security system being disarmed. Front door. Then foyer. Then living room. Someone methodically moving through the house. She shoved the pizza box into my hands. Take it. Make it look like I never ordered. Are you okay? Do you need help? Evelyn? A man's voice called from deeper in the house. Calm. Controlled. Terrifying precisely because of how normal it sounded. Just go, she mouthed, eyes wide with panic. I slipped out the back door, heart pounding. In the shadow of their garage, I hesitated. Should I call someone? The police? What would I even say? Rich lady scared of husband catching her eating pizza? From my car, I looked back at the house. Second floor, a window illuminated. 2 silhouettes. The taller one, presumably the husband, raised his hand. I couldn't tell if he was pointing or if his arm was raised to. I peeled out of the driveway. The next day, a pickup order came in for Richard Carver. As I boxed the 2 medium supremes, I checked the address, 1478 Rosemont Drive. My hands went cold. The system must have saved the address. Customer notes read, Do not deliver. Customer will pick up. 20 minutes later, a tall man in an expensive overcoat approached the counter. Salt and pepper hair, wire-rimmed glasses, Rolex watch. Corporate executive type, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Pick up for Carver, he said. 2 medium supremes? That's right. His voice was pleasant, conversational. You know, my wife accidentally ordered from you last night. Quite late. My heart stuttered. Oh? Yes. She has dietary restrictions. Medical issues. He smiled again, all teeth. I was wondering if you happened to be the driver who took that order? I shook my head, perhaps too quickly. No, sir. I was on kitchen duty last night. I see. He studied me for a long moment. Well, if you do hear anything about it, I'd appreciate you letting me know. My wife's health is very important to me. That'll be $38.50. He handed me 2 crisp 20s. Keep the change. As he turned to leave, he paused. I didn't catch your name. Alex. I said automatically, then cursed myself silently. Alex, he repeated, like he was memorizing it. Thank you for your help. 3 days passed. I picked up extra shifts but deliberately left early when another order came in for Rosemont Drive. Saturday morning, I woke to a notification from next door. Missing woman, Westbrook Hills area. The photos showed the blonde woman. Evelyn Carver, 43. Last seen Wednesday evening. Husband reported her missing Thursday morning after returning from a business trip. Business trip? He'd been there Tuesday night. I was certain. The comments section was filled with concerned neighbors. Richard must be devastated. Such a private couple, always seemed so devoted. Didn't she have health problems? I hope she's safe. I didn't sleep that night. Monday, I called in sick again. Tuesday evening, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, a police officer. Alex Bennett? She asked when I opened the door. Yes? I'm Officer Daniels, investigating a missing persons case. She stepped inside without waiting. You work at Gino's Pizzeria, correct? Did you make a delivery to 1478 Rosemont Drive last Tuesday night? I hesitated. Yes. And did you encounter Evelyn Carver? Yes. She invited me in. She seemed scared. Said her husband monitored the cameras and couldn't know about the pizza. Officer Daniels took notes. Did she say anything else? That she hadn't had pizza in 7 years. That her husband was particular about what she ate. And you said you saw her husband that night? I heard his voice. She panicked when he came home. Mr. Carver has provided evidence that he was in Chicago on business that evening. Flight records, hotel confirmation, security footage. Cold sweat broke out across my back. That's impossible. Someone was there. Mr. Carver suggested his wife might have been confused. She had a history of mental health issues. Paranoid delusions about her husband. She wasn't confused. I insisted. She was terrified. Mrs. Carver's vehicle was found at Westbrook train station. Security cameras show her boarding the 6:15 a.m. to New York on Wednesday. She was alone and appeared to be leaving voluntarily. As the officer reached the door, she turned back. One more thing. Mr. Carver mentioned several items missing from their home. Mrs. Carver's jewelry, some cash, and a distinctive silk scarf. Blue with white flowers. If you happen to see anything like that. I didn't take anything. I said. I delivered a pizza. I called in sick again. Marco finally texted not to bother coming back. I barely noticed. I started researching. Richard Carver was a pharmaceutical executive. Newspaper archives showed him and Evelyn at charity galas, her smile never reaching her eyes, her frame growing thinner in each successive photo. I began watching the house. Richard Carver left each morning at 7:30 a.m. precisely. Returned at 6:45 p.m. Lights out by 11 p.m. No variation. 2 weeks after Evelyn disappeared, her purse was found in a trash can in Penn Station. Police were treating it as a voluntary disappearance. On the 17th day, something changed. A delivery truck arrived. 2 men carried a large rectangular object inside, a refrigerator, based on the box. That night, multiple flashlight beams in the backyard. By morning, fresh sod in a rectangular patch near the garden shed. I called Officer Daniels, who suggested I seek professional help. Did you check the backyard? I demanded. Did you look under the new sod? Mr. Bennett, interfering with a police investigation is a serious offense. So is murder. I snapped. That night, I broke into the property. The fresh sod was obvious, a perfect rectangle of slightly greener grass. I should have called someone. Should have walked away. Instead, I found myself digging with my bare hands. 3 feet down, my fingers hit plastic. A tarp. I pulled it back, revealing a small blue object caught in the folds. A silk scarf. Blue with white flowers. Before I could do anything, floodlights blazed to life. An alarm wailed. "Don't move!" His voice called from the house. I ran. Reached the fence and hauled myself over, tearing my jeans, scraping my palms raw. Inside my apartment, I realized the scarf was still clutched in my hand. Evidence. In the harsh light, I noticed tiny embroidered initials, EC. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Bennett. Richard Carver's smooth voice. "I believe you have something of my wife's. I know what you did to her. You don't know anything. My wife had serious mental health issues. She became paranoid, delusional. When she disappeared, I assumed she'd taken that scarf." "You're lying. Check your phone. I've just texted you a link. Security footage. My car parked near his house. Me lurking in shadows. Night after night. Me digging in his garden. The police already think you're unhinged. Imagine what they'll think when they see this." "What do you want?" "My wife's scarf returned. It has sentimental value. And if I give it back, then this unfortunate situation goes away." Gino's was closed, but Marco let me in. Richard Carver sat at a corner table. "Here's your wife's scarf. Now delete the videos." He sighed. "It's not that simple, Alex. You've created quite a problem. You killed her. Prove it." His smile was cold. "My wife has a documented history of mental illness. She stopped taking her medication. Ran away. It's a tragedy, but not a crime." He slid a folder across the table. "Inside is a non-disclosure agreement. Sign it, and this all goes away. And if I don't, then I'll be forced to protect myself. With evidence that you've been stalking my family, breaking into my property, perhaps even harming my wife. You're framing me. I'm giving you a choice." I thought of Evelyn's frightened eyes, of the fresh soil, of the blue scarf with her initials. I thought of the police who didn't believe me, the evidence against me, the power this man wielded. And I realized this wasn't the first time he'd done this. That was 3 months ago. I signed the papers, moved to a new city, started over. But I keep seeing her face. Keep hearing her whisper that she hadn't had pizza in 7 years. Last week, a news item online, Richard Carver engaged to socialite Meredith Wells. A photo, him smiling, arm around a slender blonde woman. Her eyes familiar in their emptiness. Yesterday, I ordered a pizza to be delivered to 1478, Rosemont Drive. Paid with cash. Left no name. I don't know if he'll remember me. Don't know if he'll make the connection. But I hope she answers the door. I hope she invites the driver in. I hope someone believes her. Because I can't stop wondering how many pizza deliveries Evelyn tried before me. How many people she begged for help. How many walked away. So if your doorbell rings late at night, and the person on the other side seems desperate for you to come inside, what will you do? I wasn't always a voyeur. I was simply a writer with a deadline and a severe case of writer's block. My apartment on Marigold Street gave me a perfect view into 12 different living spaces across the courtyard. 12 windows into 12 lives. When I first moved in, I kept my blinds drawn out of respect for my neighbor's privacy. But then my publisher called, demanding pages for a novel already 6 months overdue. People fascinate me, I told my editor when he asked about my process. I study them. Their habits. Their secrets. It sounded more profound than admitting I made things up while drinking too much coffee. That night, desperate for inspiration, I left my blinds open and watched. Apartment 2B, a middle-aged man eating dinner alone, checking his phone every 30 seconds. Apartment 3A, a young couple arguing, her arms gesticulating wildly, him stone-faced. Apartment 4C, a woman about my age, maybe 35, unpacking moving boxes. I grabbed my notebook and began writing descriptions, creating backstories. The middle-aged man was waiting for a text from his mistress. The arguing couple was fighting over money, infidelity, or both. The new neighbor was starting fresh after a divorce. I wrote 12 pages that night, more than I'd written in months. The next evening, I positioned my desk by the window and watched again. The middle-aged man had company, a much younger woman. The arguing couple made up passionately. The new neighbor hung photographs, pausing to study each one. I wrote it all down, embellishing where necessary. When I sent the first 3 chapters to my editor, he called it your most authentic work yet. I created a system. Mornings for writing, evenings for observation. I assigned each apartment a character name in my notes. The middle-aged man became Martin. The arguing couple, Nathan and Sophie. The new neighbor, Julia. My novel progressed rapidly, characters intertwining in ways their real-life counterparts never did. Martin had an affair with Sophie behind Nathan's back. Julia harbored a dark secret that would unravel everyone's lives. I felt a pang of guilt using these strangers as inspiration, but wasn't that what writers did? Observed life and transformed it into art? After 2 months, I knew their schedules intimately. Martin left for work at 7:30 a.m. in a pressed suit. Nathan departed at 8:15 a.m. in scrubs, a doctor, perhaps. Sophie worked from home. Julia left irregularly, always returning with shopping bags from high-end boutiques. Then things changed. Julia began watching too. I first noticed it when I glanced up from my notebook one evening. Julia stood directly in her window, staring at me. Not just in my direction, directly at me. I froze, pen hovering over paper. She didn't wave or acknowledge me in any way. She simply stared for nearly a minute before closing her curtains. The next night, the same thing happened. This time, she held what looked like a camera. I pulled my curtains closed immediately. Heart racing, I paced my apartment. Was she photographing me? Why? Had she somehow learned what I was doing? 2 days passed before curiosity overcame my anxiety. I peered through a small gap in my curtains. Julia stood at her window again, but now she was watching Martin's apartment. She had a small notebook in hand, just like mine. My blood ran cold. Was she doing exactly what I was doing? The next morning, I found an envelope under my door. Inside, a single photograph of me sitting at my desk, watching out my window. On the back, elegant handwriting. Fellow observer. Coffee? J. I should have thrown it away. Called the police, even. Instead, I found myself at Meridian Cafe the following afternoon, sitting across from Julia. I moved here because of you, she said without preamble, stirring her latte. I read your books. The characters are so vivid, so real. I wanted to understand your process. My books weren't bestsellers, but they had a modest following. Still, this level of interest was unsettling. So you've been watching me, watch other people? I asked. At first. She smiled. Then I started watching them too. It's fascinating, isn't it? The man in 2B is having an affair with his assistant. The couple in 3A is struggling with fertility issues. Her assessments differed from my fictional interpretations. More concerning was the confidence with which she stated them as facts. How could you possibly know that? Julia sipped her coffee. I do more than watch. I listen. I follow. I learn. A chill ran through me. You follow them? How else do you get the complete story? She leaned forward. Your novels are brilliant, but they're missing the full picture. You're making assumptions based on fragments. They're fiction, I said defensively. I'm not writing their actual lives. But you could be. Julia's eyes gleamed. Imagine the novel you could write if you knew everything. I changed the subject, asked about her background. She deflected each question with practiced ease, steering the conversation back to the neighbors, to my writing, to observation techniques. As we parted, she pressed a USB drive into my hand. Some research you might find illuminating. That night, my curiosity outweighed my better judgment. The drive contained dozens of audio files and photographs. Martin arguing with the young woman in his office. Nathan crying in his car. Sophie examining adoption websites. Details I could never have seen from my window. I deleted the files immediately, but the damage was done. I knew things I shouldn't know. More disturbingly, Julia had violated these people's privacy in ways far beyond my window observations. The next day, I kept my curtains closed. The day after that as well. I tried working on my novel but found my fictional narratives contaminated by Julia's research. I couldn't separate my imagination from her disturbing revelations. On the third day, another envelope appeared under my door. More photos, not of the neighbors this time, but of me. At the grocery store. Walking to the post office. Sitting in my living room. The message on the back. Missing our collaboration. J. I installed a chain lock that afternoon. That evening, my phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. Martin is meeting his girlfriend tonight. Their usual hotel. Don't you want to know how it ends? I blocked the number. Another text, different number. Your publisher loved the direction of your new chapters. Imagine what they'll think when you show them the real story. How did she know what my publisher had said? I called my editor. Has anyone contacted you about my book? A woman named Julia. No one by that name, he said. But I did get an interesting email from a fan of yours. She had some suggestions for your character development that were quite insightful. My stomach nodded. What email address? It wasn't Julia's name, but the handle made my skin crawl, The Real Observer. Don't respond to anything from that address, I said. It's complicated. I spent the night researching Julia. No social media presence under the name she'd given me. No record of her renting the apartment. When I worked up the courage to ask the building manager about 4C, he told me it was leased to an elderly woman who'd moved to a nursing home 3 months ago. Her granddaughter was handling her affairs. Was Julia squatting? Subletting without authorization? Or had she lied about everything? I considered moving, but I had 6 months left on my lease, and breaking it would cost money I didn't have. Instead, I kept my curtains drawn and focused on finishing my novel, my fictional novel, not whatever twisted collaboration Julia had envisioned. 2 weeks passed without contact. I began to relax, thinking perhaps she'd lost interest. Then Martin from 2B made the local news. He'd been arrested for embezzlement after his assistant turned state's evidence against him. Just like Julia had described. That night, my phone chimed with a text. Sometimes real stories have better endings than fiction. J. I turned off my phone. Pushed my desk away from the window. Tried to sleep. Around midnight, a knock at my door jolted me awake. Through the peephole, empty hallway. Another knock, more insistent. Still, no one visible. Julia? I called through the door. No answer. The knocking came a third time, and I realized it wasn't coming from the hallway door, but from my balcony window. Impossible. I lived on the 5th floor. Heart pounding, I approached the curtained window. A shadowy figure stood on my narrow balcony. I reached for my phone to call 911, then remembered it was off. The shadow tapped the glass again. Go away or I'm calling the police. I shouted. I just want to talk. Came Julia's muffled voice. About the ending. What ending? To our story. The one we're writing together. We're not writing anything together, I said. Please leave. But we are, she insisted. I've been documenting everything. Our meeting. Your reaction to my research. Your fear. Its compelling narrative structure. I backed away from the window. I'm calling the police. Before you do, she said, you should know I've been sharing our story with your neighbors. Martin was just the beginning. Nathan and Sophie were quite disturbed to learn about your observations. My blood went cold. What did you tell them? The truth. That you watched them. Study them. Use them for your fiction. That everything that's happened has been because of you. That's not true. Isn't it? You started this. I'm just continuing what you began. Her hand pressed against the glass. Let me in. We need to discuss the third act. I ran to my bedroom, found my phone, turned it on. As I dialed 911, I heard the unmistakable sound of breaking glass. When the police arrived 12 minutes later, they found no one on my balcony and no signs of forced entry. The glass was intact. They took my statement but seemed skeptical, especially when I couldn't provide Julia's last name or any proof she'd been there. "Ma'am," the officer said gently, "are you working on a book right now? Could you be blurring the lines between your fiction and reality?" They left me with a card for a mental health crisis line. The next morning, I received an email from my publisher. Subject line: Extraordinary submission. We received several chapters of what appears to be a new direction for your novel. The message read: The shift to true crime is unexpected but fascinating. The detailed observations of your neighbors, your own paranoia, and this mysterious Julia character create an unsettling psychological narrative. If this metafictional approach is intentional, it's brilliant. Looking forward to the final chapters. Attached were documents I'd never written, composed in perfect imitation of my style. Detailed descriptions of everything that had happened: my window watching, coffee with Julia, the USB drive, my growing fear, all framed as a novel about a novelist losing her grip on reality. The final paragraph described the author character becoming so paranoid she imagines a confrontation on her balcony that never occurs, followed by a police visit that makes her question her sanity. It ended with a line that made my heart stop. She would never know if Julia was real or a manifestation of her guilt, until the final chapter. I tried calling my editor, but his assistant said he was in meetings all day. I sent a frantic email explaining the submission wasn't mine, received an auto-reply that he was out of the office until Monday. That weekend, I packed a suitcase and checked into a hotel across town. Away from my window. Away from Julia, whether she was real or not. On Sunday night, my editor called. "Great news," he said. "The complete manuscript came in. Absolutely chilling ending. Your best work by far." "I didn't send anything," I whispered. "Well, someone did," he chuckled. "From your email address. I've already sent the contract amendment for the expanded advance." What happens in the ending?" I managed to ask. "That's the brilliant part," he said. "The author character finally confronts her doppelganger, only to discover there never was a Julia. It was a split personality she developed from the guilt of exploiting her neighbors' lives. In the final scene, she's committed to a psychiatric facility, insisting that Julia is real. Then you reveal that one of the nurses is actually Julia, who's been orchestrating everything to steal her identity and her career. Delicious psychological ambiguity. My room keycard sat on the hotel desk. Next to it, a handwritten note I hadn't noticed before. "Isn't it better when we work together? J." I've checked out of 6 hotels since then. I've changed my email address, my phone number. I deleted my manuscript and started a different book entirely, a straightforward mystery with no connection to my life. But every place I go, she's already there. A glimpse in a coffee shop. A note on my laptop when I return to a table after ordering. Once, my new manuscript mysteriously opened to a page I hadn't written, describing exactly what I was wearing that day. I don't know if she's real anymore. Sometimes I think my editor is right, that I created her from guilt, that I'm losing my mind. Other times, I'm certain she's following me, documenting everything for what she calls our final chapter. The worst part? My new novel is the best work I've ever done. Dark, authentic, visceral fear on every page. I've stopped looking out windows. Stopped watching other people. Because now, I know someone is watching me. The Henderson family moved to Pinecrest 3 weeks after the previous owners vanished. That's how our neighborhood Facebook group phrased it, vanished, though the realtor called it a sudden relocation. The Mitchells had been there on a Friday, loading their SUV for what neighbors assumed was a weekend trip, and by Monday, a sold sign appeared in their yard. No goodbyes. No forwarding address. I lived directly across the street. From my window, I watched the Hendersons arrive, Thomas, an investment banker with a too wide smile, Rebecca, his elegant wife with tired eyes, and their 9-year-old daughter, Ellie, who didn't look up from her tablet during the entire unloading process. "We should bring them something," my wife Sarah suggested. I nodded, noting how the movers handled certain boxes with peculiar care, flat, rectangular packages that Thomas directed to the basement. Probably artwork, I told myself. Sarah made lasagna, and we walked across the street that evening. Rebecca answered, her smile practiced but not reaching her eyes. "Welcome to Pinecrest," I said. "I'm Daniel. This is my wife, Sarah." She didn't invite us in, and something in her posture, slightly angled, blocking the doorway, suggested she preferred to keep it that way. "Is your husband home?" Sarah asked. "And your daughter?" "We have children about her age." Rebecca's smile tightened. "Thomas is setting up his home office, and Ellie's resting." The move was difficult for her. Through the narrow opening of the door, I glimpsed their foyer. Empty moving boxes stacked neatly against pristine walls. Nothing personal yet, no photos, no haphazard pile of shoes, none of the lived-in touches that transform a house into a home. That night, unable to sleep, I noticed a figure at the Hendersons' upper window, Thomas's silhouette, standing perfectly still, looking out toward our street. Not moving, just watching for nearly 30 minutes before the light went out. I found myself checking the window again the next night. And the next. Thomas maintained his vigil each time, always at 2 a.m., always for exactly 30 minutes. During the day, the Hendersons kept to themselves. Thomas left precisely at 7:15 each morning. Rebecca drove Ellie to school but rarely emerged otherwise. No walks. No trips to nearby shops. Groceries delivered. Curtains drawn. 2 weeks after their arrival, Sarah encountered Ellie at the community playground. Our 11-year-old daughter, Mia, had been hoping to make friends with her. "She's unusual," Sarah told me later. "Barely spoke. When another child invited her to play, she said she wasn't allowed to engage without supervision." "Those exact words?" I asked. Sarah nodded. "Sounded rehearsed. My wife is a school counselor. She notices things about children that others miss. There's something else," she continued. "Ellie had these marks on her wrists. Not bruises exactly, but red impressions like she'd been restrained somehow." "Did you ask about them?" Rebecca appeared before I could. Practically materialized out of nowhere. "Said Ellie was allergic to the new laundry detergent they were using. Then they left immediately." The next morning, fetching our newspaper, I spotted Thomas meticulously cleaning his car's trunk. Not just a casual wipe-down, but a detailed scrubbing with brushes and chemicals, dressed in clothes too formal for weekend chores. He saw me watching and paused, that too-wide smile appearing. "Morning, neighbor!" I was about to retreat when he crossed the street, rubber gloves still on his hands, a chemical scent trailing him. "Listen, I've been meaning to ask," Thomas said, standing closer than comfortable. "The previous owners, the Mitchells, did they mention where they were going?" I shook my head. "They didn't say goodbye to anyone. It was unusual. But they left in a hurry? Suddenly? Seemed that way. Why do you ask?" Thomas's smile remained fixed. "Just curious about the house's history." He paused. "And the neighborhood watch? Security cameras? That sort of thing? We have a neighborhood Facebook group," I offered. "People post if they see anything suspicious." "Excellent," he said. "Vigilance is important. You never know who might be watching." 3 days later, I was working from home when a moving truck pulled up to the Hendersons' house. 2 men carried out the flat, rectangular packages I'd seen arrive, 5 in total, loading them with careful precision. Curiosity overwhelmed me. I grabbed my phone and pretended to check the mail, snapping photos of the truck and its logo. "Secure store climate-controlled storage." Thomas supervised the loading, eyes constantly scanning the street. When he spotted me, his face hardened momentarily before the familiar smile resurfaced. "Doing some rearranging?" I called casually. "Just storing some items that don't fit the new aesthetic," he replied. That evening, I googled Secure Store. The company specialized in high-security climate-controlled units for valuable art and collectibles. But they also advertised completely private, access-controlled services for our most discerning clients. As I scrolled through their website, a news notification appeared on my phone. A family in Burlington, about 200 miles north, had been reported missing after neighbors noticed mail piling up. The Connors, husband, wife, and daughter, hadn't been seen for nearly 3 weeks. Probably nothing. Coincidence. And yet, I found myself scrolling through missing persons reports that night, families specifically, looking for patterns. 3 cases within 500 miles over the past year. All families of 3. All vanished suddenly, leaving possessions behind. All homes sold quickly afterward. Just as I was about to close my laptop, convinced I was manufacturing connections, I saw it, a school photo of the Connor girl. She looked remarkably like Ellie Henderson. Different hair color, different name, but the same solemn eyes. The same small scar above her right eyebrow. Sleep evaded me entirely. I sat at my window, watching the Hendersons' house. At 2 a.m., precisely on schedule, the upstairs light came on. Thomas took his position at the window. This time, he saw me watching. Our eyes met across the darkened street. He didn't move. Neither did I. Eventually, I looked away first. The next morning, I called in sick to work and went to the local police station. Officer Ramirez listened patiently as I laid out my concerns. So you believe your new neighbors might be connected to missing persons cases because they keep to themselves and the daughter looks like a missing girl? She summarized. Put that way, it sounded absurd. There are other things, I insisted. The careful handling of those storage items. Thomas's obsessive car cleaning. The marks on Ellie's wrists. The way they avoid interaction. None of which is criminal, Ramirez noted. Some people are private. Some have anxious kids who pick at their wrists. Moving is stressful. I showed her the photo comparison on my phone. Look at the scar. It's identical. She studied it longer. There's a resemblance, she conceded. But not enough for us to obtain a warrant. I can do a wellness check if that would make you feel better. When I returned home, a package sat on our doorstep. Inside was a framed family photo of the Hendersons standing in front of their new house. A note accompanied it. Thought your family might want this since you've been so interested in ours. A warning, clearly. But the photo itself disturbed me more. It showed the Hendersons on moving day, when I'd been watching from my window. The angle was from our house, from my exact vantage point. He'd been watching me watch them. Later that afternoon, Officer Ramirez conducted the wellness check. From my window, I saw Rebecca invite them in with a warm smile, entirely different from the guarded woman who'd received us. Ramirez crossed the street to my house afterward. Everything seems perfectly normal, she reported. They even showed us family photos going back years. Mr. Wilson, she continued gently, they mentioned you've been watching their house. Taking photos. Mr. Henderson is concerned. He sent me a photo taken from inside my house. I countered. He says it was meant as a friendly gesture. I'd suggest giving them space. That night, all 3 Hendersons stood at the window, silhouettes perfectly aligned, watching my house for exactly 30 minutes before their lights went out. The next day, Sarah confronted me about my obsession with the neighbors. Officer Ramirez called me, she explained. You haven't been sleeping. You're making connections that aren't there. You're the one who noticed the marks on Ellie's wrists, I reminded her. Yes, but that doesn't mean they'd kidnapped her. 3 days passed. I focused on work, on our family. I stopped watching the Hendersons' house. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched myself. Then Mia came home from school with an invitation, a playdate with Ellie Henderson. Absolutely not, I said immediately. Sarah pulled me aside. You're letting your paranoia affect our daughter's social life. In the end I relented, but with conditions. The playdate would be at our house, and Sarah would stay home. Thomas dropped Ellie off, that familiar smile never wavering. The playdate proceeded without incident. Ellie was quiet but polite, her sleeves carefully covering her wrists despite the warm weather. When I tried engaging her about her previous home, she glanced toward the door before answering with rehearsed responses about a house in the mountains. As Thomas was collecting her, I noticed a small object fall from Ellie's pocket, a silver locket. I retrieved it after they left, intending to return it later. Inside was a family photo. Not the Hendersons, but the missing Connors. The girl in the picture wore the locket around her neck. That night I showed Sarah. Her face paled. "We need to call the police." Now. The investigation revealed the horrifying truth. The Hendersons weren't a family at all, but a couple who moved systematically from town to town. They'd identify an isolated family with a daughter, observe them, then eliminate them, assuming their housing but not their identities. The valuable items in climate-controlled storage? Trophies from previous families. The real Ellie Henderson had disappeared with her parents 6 months earlier in Rhode Island. The girl we knew as Ellie was Emily Connor from Burlington, kept compliant through psychological manipulation and drugs. The marks on her wrists were from restraints used during her adjustment period. The police found 3 other girls in a hidden room in the basement, each taken from different families over the past 2 years. Each believing they were the Hendersons' daughter, while being slowly conditioned to forget their real parents. What they never found were the bodies of any of the parents. Thomas and Rebecca refused to cooperate with investigators, maintaining their unsettling smiles through every interrogation. They also never found the Mitchells, the family who had lived across the street before us. Sometimes I wonder if we were next on their list. If our family fits some profile they sought. Sarah says I'm being paranoid again, but I notice she's installed new security cameras. Better locks. Motion sensors. Last week, a moving truck arrived at the former Henderson house. A new family is coming, parents and a daughter, according to the realtor's listing. I find myself standing at my window at 2 a.m., watching their darkened house, unwilling to look away. Just in case. Thanks so much for watching. I can't express enough how much your support means. The likes, the comments, it all really helps the channel grow. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. I always take the time to read them. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on any new videos. See you next time.